Hey, you guys hear me out there? Am I in the picture? Yeah. Well, hey, I'm back from Utah. I've been back about a week and a half. My original plan was to stay in Utah at least 2 weeks. Kind of rained out on me though. It seems like every other day it was raining, and it was just... it was interesting. The first part was interesting. Grand Canyon was perfect. The weather was like this one day at least, or half a day. But it was interesting getting out there in the rain. So, what I'd like to do is just do a little review on the suspension, ARB suspension. It worked great loaded up. Actually, it rides good when it's not loaded up, but it ran great when it was loaded up with all my gear in the back. The truck sat level, perfect. What I did notice, off-roading, I unloaded all my gear, went off-roading out in the sand dunes. And I noticed the front suspension tends to bottom out quite easily on the sand dunes. You know, you hit those little whoops. I suppose they could put a heavier valve shock in the front, but then at the same time you're going to lose a little ride quality on the road. So there's a little trade-off when you're doing when messing around with suspensions and all that. You know, you could double shock the front, but it's going to ride a little harder on the road, but it's going to have more control off-road. So, you know, all I had to do was slow down a little. You know, I tried to do a couple big hills and I got a little head start, and I hit a bump in, and it just boom, bottomed out and popped up and bam, back down again. Just glad I didn't bend anything. After that, I just took everything easy, you know. But I assume if you're going to go bashing around, you might want to upgrade the front shock to something a little stiffer. That's what I assume anyway. I'd say double shock kit. If somebody makes a double shock kit for it, I don't know. On the rear is perfect. The tires, the Cooper Discover At3s worked great everywhere I went. When I went from the pavement, I was at 40 psi, and I left them at 40 psi all the way till I got to campground the next day. I let the air down the tires the next day. Yeah, down to 20. You know, I'm just guessing at this because I've never had these tires before. They are load range D. Rated at like 3,000 pounds maximum at 50 psi per tire, so I think they're like a little way too heavy for the small truck. You know, I only got load range C on my Bronco, and my Bronco's a lot heavier than this truck. So anyway, they did work good at 20 psi, just cruising around. Hit a lot of mud. Yeah, I got a lot of mud that first day going out there. No issues at all in the mud. Very surprised. Even on the Tacoma, without any kind of traction adding device, you know, like a locker or anything like that, air lockers, ran great. No problems. On the highway, I had to do a lot of wet weather driving on the highway out there. No problem either. They gripped really good. That's a problem I've had with off-road tires before, especially like the mud terrain tires. They don't grip very good in the rain on wet roads. Wet bitumen, that's what they call it, don't they, in Australia? The bitumen? Yeah. I've had 3 sets of Goodyear MTRs, or 2 sets of Goodyear MTRs, I forget now, but they weren't very good in the rain. The big groundhogs I had on my big truck weren't very good on the wet highways. These are good all the way around. In the sand dunes, by the way, I tried them at 15 psi, and this was wet sand, so I don't know what the sand condition is there when it's dry, but so I tried 15 psi. I had to give it a lot of throttle to keep going, and especially up hills, you know, I had to put it to the floor and kick it down a gear. But once I tried it again at 10 psi, it worked great. I mean, I drove from camp back to the trailhead, aired down to 10 psi, and then took off, and I forgot to put it in four-wheel drive. I was only in two-wheel drive, but it drove great. It just floated over the sand, no problem. When I started getting a little incline, I could start feeling it dig in, and it hit me, hey, I don't have it locked up. So, could I have gone lower? I don't know. Probably. So these tires will probably tend to flex less than the tires I got on my Bronco because they're thicker. They're a 6-ply. Like I said, they're load range D, not load range C. Now, are these the best off-road tires Cooper makes? No, they make a, was it SST? Anyway, it's like a mud terrain tire. That has a 3-ply sidewall. This only has a 2. And they also make another one in between, an all-terrain type tire, which is a little tougher than this. From what I hear, they don't last as long. So it's a trade-off you got to make. I'm looking at kind of going to do everything. And these are rated at 65,000 miles. So we'll see how they do. They work good off-road. So far, so good. Alright, since I'm out here being bored, thought I'd show you what the tires look like at 10 psi. The fronts are at 10. Yeah. And the rears are at 40. Or at least one front is at 10, yeah. So, yeah. So, that's a look at the Cooper AT3 at 10 psi. And that's what I ran them in the sand. Why 10 psi? Just a round number, that's all. I just picked a round number. I went from 15 down to 10. Well, you know, things like this, you just got to feel it out and see what works. I like to keep the numbers even. Some people go 12. Well, I go 12 in the back and 13 in the rear or something. Just keep it even, man. Keep it even. Do whatever you want.